This is TWiT.
We're a little delayed today because I couldn't tear myself away from the testimony of the big four. Zuck.
See, I can't watch more than a few minutes of that, and it's just aggravating.
I watch. Okay,
I just want to read the recaps.
Yeah, I mean, once the questioning begins, it does get the steam start to come out. But I have to say, I watched Jeff Bezos kick things off, and then Sundar Pichai of Google, Tim Cook of Apple, and Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook. And by the time they were done, certainly Sundar Pichai and Tim Cook, I wanted to jump up, wave the flag, and say, hallelujah, celebrate big tech, because they were, and they weren't lying. They were very clear about the benefits tech have brought us. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in, are these guys too big? Are they too dominant? Are they, skewing the conversation? Is Amazon going to eat the world? That we forget what a boon these companies have given us. So, I mean, look, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing without this. We use Microsoft Skype. We use technologies from a variety of companies. Although Jeffrey Fowler, I was watching the Washington Post stream, Jeffrey Fowler, who's their great tech columnist, did make a point that when he first started covering tech, as for the same of all three of us, there were a lot of little companies. Yeah. That's changed. We cover the big, it's all about the big companies.
There were small, what I would call legitimate companies, actual corporations. I think today you could almost call it like an indie scene. Like there are tons of very small companies.
That's true.
It's a different kind of thing. But no, he's right. I mean, he's definitely right. There was basically, the big guys, Microsoft, Sun, IBM, whomever it did, depending on the year. And then, there were lots of, smaller companies for sure.
Yeah. It is a little bit more, those big four dominate. The other thing that struck me after I stopped running around naked waving the flag, because I had just gotten out of the shower, was...
I see.
Yeah.
Talk about draping yourself on the flag, Leo.
Lisa thought it was a lot, I must say.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to let that one pass. You mean for us to believe that that's an unusual occurrence in your house? that your wife was actually surprised by this behavior.
So the TV is where her office is.
Yes.
And I was listening on my Echo, but I wanted to see, once they started talking, I wanted to see, because they're all on Skype or something like it. And I thought it was
WebEx, I think, right? Yeah.
Cisco or WebEx. And so it's interesting. I wanted to see, I think there was a lot I would guess, I hate to use this word, but semiotics in the signaling of the set, how they were dressed.
Of course, yes.
Sure.
Right? All of it was purposeful. Yep,
clearly, hours were spent.
Through, right?
Yeah, highly thought through. So I wanted to. I was listening, and listening's good because you can hear the words. But I wanted to see. So I came, and I was in the shower, and I came running out, and I had to drape myself in something, and I thought the American flag was as good as anything. God bless it.
Now we're going to have to burn it.
Well, I think we're going to give it a decent burial, yes. So, but the one thing that did leap to mind is, where's Satya Nadella on that list? Why is he not in that group? Shouldn't he be?
Because Microsoft is not big in consumer tech.
None of them were monopolies, though, as they were very quick to point out.
Well, I don't know.
Bezos said, we only have 5% of the market. What are you talking about?
Let's talk about ads.
Yeah, well, in certain areas, maybe, yeah.
I mean, Microsoft obviously dominates to some degree in the enterprise.
They were the big bad giant in years gone by.
And by the way, I would say it's a striking difference. 22 years ago, Bill Gates stood in front of a similar panel. He appeared in person, of course, at that time. And Microsoft was personal computing when that happened. Today, it is these four companies and some others collectively are personal computing. And they definitely wield more power overall because the audience size is bigger. But as far as like a percentage of the market, or however you want to measure that, none of them stand up to Microsoft, to the level of power that Microsoft had within the confines of the market, such as it was in the 90s.
That's fair.
Unless you want to measure online ads, then I think it's a different story.
Well, the three of them together, Amazon, Google, and Facebook, dominate online advertising dramatically, right?
Yeah.
But that's three companies, so none of them has a monopoly either.
Well, right, but so the issue with the people always cart out the term monopoly, right? And if they don't have monopoly, it's not a problem. It's like it's a little more nuanced than that. I mean, you have to determine market power and the your gatekeeper abilities over a gigantic audience. The amount of money that you generate, your ability to exclude competitors and to harm consumers. These companies are all dominant tech superpowers in many ways, each of them, and Microsoft too. And I mean, there needs to be, as there always. I mean, in the 90s we talked about this too. I mean, there's this notion that maybe the law has not kept up with what's happened out in the market.
Yes.
And
it's difficult for the law to keep up.
Yeah.
And the reason this comes up is this committee is in fact the antitrust committee of the Judiciary Committee of the Congress. So that's their bailiwick. That's despite the fact that they are asking them about things like bias. This really isn't that's not really the purview of the committee.
Or it just every conversation I have is ridiculous. It's like on whatever day and whatever year, Mr. Zuckerberg, you asked your CTO or CFO or whoever it was about buying Instagram, and he's just like, and like yeah, I guess so. So what?
Yeah.
Like,
well, the point. I think I can't remember, was this Cicciolini or Jerry Nadler, but the point was, did you buy Instagram because they were a competitor and you wanted to basically keep them from competing? I don't know if that's illegal. I guess it is based on his questioning. But everybody knows that's why. I mean, it's not even a question. Of course that's why we bought it.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
I don't know. And so many of these things, just like in the Microsoft antitrust trial, they're things that happened in the past, right? And so they're asking him about things that happened in the past. And then it's like, yeah, okay, so if you give them a remedy now and you try to fix it, it's too late.
Yeah, it's kind of too late.
Right?
You allowed it. We should be clear. The government
Yeah.
allowed it and said there was no trust issue. And but
does that mean that we just give up and don't ever do anything about it? I mean, it's too bad we didn't do something about it 5 years earlier, in Microsoft's case or whatever, but I don't know.
That's a good question. I don't know.
It's a rhetorical.
If you're a company, you went through the process and the government examined it and the government gave you a clean bill of health, so you went ahead and did it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they're going to come back 5 years later and say, well, we were wrong.
Yeah.
One of the central ironies of the Microsoft antitrust case in the United States is that Netscape was sold to America Online while it was happening.
Yep.
And it was like, see, I mean, these were the guys that were going to take over the market, and Microsoft destroyed them.
Yeah.
Now, Netscape, like any, a lot of companies had a lot of self-inflicted damage as well. And when it's probably in the notes, but. If we look at that Slack thing again in the Microsoft complaint, I mean, you definitely can see some parallels there, but you see parallels on both sides. I mean, Slack as the smaller company, it wasn't necessarily well managed and didn't necessarily do a good job. And confronted by the fact that Microsoft was entering their market, what did they do exactly? Can you point to something they did that was amazing, that made their product better? All they did was start complaining.
Yeah.
Took out a full page ad in the New York Times, wasn't it? Where they said, welcome to the party, Microsoft.
Yeah. Just hubris has a way of coming back and biting you in the butt.
It's funny they keep doing it. You keep seeing this.
I know. Yeah, the problem is these things happen so far after the fact. I feel like that's unless we can have a system where it's brought up in a more timely fashion, there's really no way this benefits the consumer. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
The reason I was dressed in the American flag, besides my apparent nakedness, was I felt like all four of them did a great job of stating a strong case of how technology is a huge boon. It is a driver of the American economy, clearly, and we see it especially during COVID. It is an empowering thing. It gives people a voice. There is no one who would say there isn't a lot of positive to what those four companies have done. Huge amount.
Right.
I know, but listen, come on. This is this is overly dramatic. I apologize if this is insensitive, but I always bring up this example. If the Nazis had won World War II and had cured cancer, would that have made it okay? I mean, yeah, there is good. I get, absolutely.
I don't think you could say any four of these companies have concentration camps.
It's overly dramatic. I admitted that, but I just, for whatever, look, I get in a car and I have to drive to Boston. I absolutely rely on Google Maps because it has up-to-date information about speed traps and construction and traffic, and it reroutes me, and I rely on it. But it's also a fact that Google is tracking me all over the internet, including when I'm driving in my car, and they're selling that information to advertisers. And we've all had that weird moment where I wasn't Google searching this. I was talking to someone in a room, and I started seeing ads about this thing we were talking about. We've all experienced this. So, I mean, yeah, I know, not Nazis exactly, but, there's bad to it, too.
Yeah.
All these companies, all of them. Yeah. It's nice getting Cheetos a day later. I love that. God bless Amazon for that. But Amazon has also put all kinds of small companies out of business, including especially bookstores. Did bookstores make strategic mistakes of their own? Yeah, probably.
Well, but okay, so did Amazon do it, or did we do it because we preferred Amazon?
Yeah. No, listen.
If you really like that independent bookstore,
yes,
America,
keep shopping with them.
You should have shopped with them.
And I'm absolutely part of that problem because
Amazon won because it did a better job. Isn't that the way it is?
It made it convenient.
Yeah.
That's what tech does. Tech makes things convenient, right? And a lot of people like me are willing to trade your privacy for it. Like if you said, am I upset Google tracks me? Yeah, but you know what? I'm okay with it if it's convenient.
That's a really good argument, but I don't think people understand what that even means, and I don't think they understand the danger and the badness that comes as part of it. Like, if you can't make an educated decision about the good or bad of something, then knowing about it, not caring almost doesn't matter. I don't mean you personally. I mean, but a lot of people.
It's your fault, Mary Jo.
Yeah, I feel seen.
Yeah, big tech is like McDonald's. Yeah, it is convenient. It goes down easy. And then 10 years later, you're like, well, I don't have any money, and why am I so fat? And is it my fault? Yes, it's my fault, I guess. I went to McDonald's, but McDonald's made it really easy. Drive-through windows, low prices.
Well, yeah, and this is a really deep philosophical question about how much of it is the government's job to protect us from ourselves.
Right.
And, you could make the case Mayor Bloomberg did that super gulp sodas are not good for people. But I think in hindsight, everyone agrees, maybe even Bloomberg, that wasn't a good law. Actually, I would argue that, again, I would argue to the contrary of that. That's like saying that, well, you could force people to wear helmets on motorcycles. But that is a good law. That saves lives and saves resources.
Why is it any difference? Because it happens quick? I mean, no, I mean, seriously.
I feel like it's an American right to get fat.
But why?
Because I don't think we should have a right to head injuries.
Healthcare costs that handicap your family and your friends and everyone around you. I mean, it happens in slow motion. Okay. But it's still the same net effect. You're still harming other people.
There's somewhere, we don't know where it is. There's a line where, seatbelt laws, helmet laws, that makes sense. Big gulp, we'll put that somewhere in the gray area.
How are these things not exactly the same? You ever sit on a plane?
But saying,
and there's like one seat next to you.
No, I understand, but saying McDonald's
is on the plane and you're like, here we go, 5 hours in the air next to this guy. Why am I paying for this?
No, I agree.
But okay, if you really take your argument to an extreme, then we can start getting into, should you be eating meat? Should I be able to tell you shouldn't be eating meat? Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Where's the line?
There's a line somewhere, which maybe is gray, but there is a point beyond which you shouldn't go. And I think it's pretty clear that saying a company is too successful, we don't like that.
Yeah. No. But that can't be
beyond the pale.
The answer can't be like, my favorite band got too big and now I don't like them anymore. Right. That's not the. Yeah. My favorite band doesn't exclude other bands from performing music and, appearing live in certain places or whatever. I mean, big tech is a different animal. It is. The problem is literally the two tenets of antitrust, depending on where you are, which is harm to consumers and harm to competition.
Right.
And I don't think we need to live in a completely socialist world where all competitors are equal. If anything, that's the biggest problem we have in our country today is all ideas are good. Let's give everyone some air, But the problem I think is what I said earlier up front. It's just the laws literally have not evolved to address the problems of big tech, and trying to solve them with the same antitrust rules that we applied to, American Steel or U.S. Steel or whatever that was back in the day, or U.S. Rail, whatever it was.
US Steel.
U.S. maybe a losing battle.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that they're having a conversation.
You do? Yeah. I feel like, okay, so let's say this goes to its complete end and they say, okay, let's break them up. I don't think that's the right answer to the problem either.
That's the real question is what could
Congress
do that would make sense? And I think we're very far from an answer to that question.
Listen, we only have 2 hours. Right. We can't address this problem, but here's a theory that kind of applies. Like, what was better when we had 3 major networks on TV in the United States, or today when we have 11,000 different choices? What was better? Way more choice or too little choice, and the power was all concentrated with these 3 big companies. Like, which one was better?
Right.
There's no answer to this question. I mean, it's a trick, right? There are pros and cons to both.
Yeah.
There's also, and I would say that our audience shares my trepidations about government trying to find a solution to these very subtle and thorny problems. There's kind of a mismatch between the speed of tech and they're not trying to solve it.
They're not trying to solve any problems.
No.
This literally has turned into like everything else in this country. It's just partisan nonsense.
Yeah.
It's like you said, the Republicans are just about, anti-conservative bias in social media, and the Democrats just care about antitrust apparently, which is I find a little hard to believe myself. But they're not going to solve any problems.
No.
What they've really done is just given these guys a platform to do what you said they did, which was lay out really good cases for why they exist.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's nothing more pro-American than Google.
Well,
for maybe Apple.
These are great American success stories, right? I think Apple Tim had a very strong argument. He said, we are not dominant in any market in which we compete. We are not dominant. We're just trying to make the best products. And in no case, phones, computing, operating systems, are we even close to dominant. So what's your problem, guys? You got a problem with us?
I mean, between Google and Apple, they control 100% of all the smartphones that are used in the United States. And it's almost a 50-50 split. It's something like 58 to 42.
Yeah, but Google doesn't control those. Android controls those. In fact, it's really more Samsung. So that's the thing. It's in no traditional way is this a monopoly.
It's a duopoly.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as the platform goes.
But it's not even a duopoly because Google doesn't control those. It makes a free operating system that they use.
Yeah.
Samsung announces next week a new partnership with Google in which they've dropped Bixby in their, their store.
And Microsoft, right?
Just to be clear, that had not happened.
No, it has not.
It will not happen, I don't think. It's an interesting. Well, look, everybody knows this is a conundrum. This is all we discuss on This Week in Google each and every week. So